right, folks, let's get into it. After a long day looking at the bad screen, what could be better than looking at the good screen? For many people, including yours truly, video games were a saving grace in 2020, giving us a much needed respite from the world by letting us frolic about in virtual ones instead. Now, this was especially valuable in a year where we really couldn't go anywhere. And if you're like me, you live in a one-bedroom apartment, you really can't go anywhere. So there were so many amazing video games that came out this year. So I want to start things off by asking my panel, what was the best video game of 2020 to you? And Sam, I want to start with you on this one.
Oh man, I mean, I'm a huge fan of the Spider-Man Miles Morales game that came out really recently. I helped out on that game a little bit. I was lucky enough to be with the studio when they were working on it, and I just think it was really special. And my favorite part of that game was that they actually worked with an ASL actor and interpreter to get a deaf quest giver into the game. And Miles also speaks ASL, and I just think that's super cool. It's one of my favorite things about the game, which otherwise is great. But the most fun I've had playing a game this year is Wasteland 3. It came out a few months ago. It's Dan's laughing because he knows me. It's like a billion-hour isometric top-down RPG. It's kind of similar to like old school Baldur's Gate or like Fallout 2 or Divinity Original Sin, but like with guns and in the post-apocalypse. So great. I love stuff like that. I had to reload a really old save 2 nights ago because I burst into tears because I'd made such bad decisions that everyone in the game hated me. And I was like, I can't deal with this. Like, it's too much for me. So yeah, it's been great. Wasteland 3, big for me.
Yeah, I gotta say, I have to second Wasteland 3, that recommendation. If you're looking for a game that's like hundreds of hours long with all types of challenges and ways to be forced to live with the consequences of your actions, especially if you make interesting choices with how you spec your character. It can be unforgiving, but a good challenge. It's from the folks at In Exile Entertainment, just a fantastic RPG in which to like, it's one of those games where you look down, not the scale of like Civilization, for example, but you look down, then you look up and it's suddenly like 3 a.m. And that's exactly the kind of game that I kind of needed this year. But Karam, I'm curious, for you, what was your favorite game of 2020?
Well, it's really interesting because I stumbled onto it's a management game actually about dying, believe it or not, called Spiritfarer, and I did not plan on playing this game. So basically, the way I play games is really based on my where my emotions are that day. So I go from everything from Mortal Kombat to Spiritfarer. So either I'm ripping spines out of people because I'm losing my mind, or I'm playing this really calm, very zen game. Now, the reason why I like Spiritfarer is even though it's a bit of a grind, you can spend your days fishing. You're basically taking care of these spirits before they cross over and they show up in different animal forms and stuff like that. And I believe it came out on Steam or something first. And it's an indie game that someone recommended to me actually in the chat on one of my shows. And I love it. The other show that I've started to play, which again, emotions, is called Moving Out. And the whole purpose, it's like Fall Guys, but with angry moving people. And so the point of the game is to break as many things as possible on your way out of this house. So yes, again, another emotional day. I'm an emotional roller coaster this year. And these are my games.
But that's like the best part about video games though, is because you can like give those emotions a nice, safe place to release them because, we did a video series about the science of Mortal Kombat. It is much easier to rip a spine out in game than in real life. Yeah. And also safer too.
Exactly.
You don't have to get within 6 feet of someone.
Exactly. Yeah. After a really hard day on Twitter, Mortal Kombat is the antidote that I need.
Yeah, 100%. And I definitely want to check out Spiritfarer because I remember seeing the trailer for that and it just looked so peaceful.
It is, and it's beautiful. The animation also is beautiful.
Yeah, and I felt mildly triggered when you were talking about moving out because I'm just remembering the state of some of my furniture the last time that I moved. So I definitely think that whoever I used last time, they must have based that game off of what they did with my stuff. But anyway, Ricky, what about you? What was your top game of 2020?
So for 2020, I have kind of two categories, and both of them I really, really needed in order to get through this year. And one category was playing games with friends. And obviously, there's many obvious choices there, but the biggest one was obviously Among Us. And Among Us was a game where you were able to jump in and make stronger friendships and stronger enemies within minutes than you would normally in any other kind of setting, because I actually talked about this with plenty of people, but when you're aging, or you're in your professional life and stuff like that, you leave high school and college, like you make friends at work, or you make friends and you go to like parties or bars or something like that. This kind of replaced the physical meeting spot for 2020 by just getting together with a bunch of friends and playing Among Us. And you can yell at people, you can have fun, everyone's laughing. It's just a great communal experience. And I actually made more friends this year through that game than I think in real life outside of a business sense than like any other time. So it was really cool to play that. And going alongside that was Fall Guys. Playing Fall Guys with friends was a lot of fun, and just trying to have fun with the limited resources you can. And luckily we live in a time and space where you can meet virtually with people. On the other side of things, did a little bit of not real gambling, but gambling with various poker games with friends, setting up poker nights with friends. But on the other side of things, where it's just me trying to like de-stress or play at the end of a day and just kind of like go through log off of Twitter and log into my escapism. Definitely World of Warcraft. I got back into that as some comfort food because I've played that game for over a decade now. So it was very comforting to just get back in Quest, and they released a new expansion recently, which is great.
Shadowlands,
I
learned it's so good.
Yeah, Shadowlands is great. I learned how to play Magic the Gathering for the first time ever. That was my quarantine learning experience. So that's been going great. And then, of course, I think my number one game of the year, and there's going to be plenty of people that agree with me, it's hard not to, Hades. Hades was the most fun like single player experience, and I already loved roguelikes before that, so it literally hit every note possible for me enjoying a game. The art direction was incredible, the voiceover work was incredible, the story was great. It had every aspect of a game that I really enjoyed. It was challenging, you felt rewarding after getting stronger and unlocking abilities. It was probably my favorite game of the year as far as single player goes. But just a broad spectrum this year. That was a lot of fun.
Studio. They're so good. Everything they make is like a 10. Work. It's amazing.
Yeah, this is like where we run that like Jesse Pinkman, they can't keep getting away with this meme because they just make fantastic games. They know what they're doing, and Hades, I think, is kind of like the pinnacle of what I want from a roguelike. From a gameplay perspective, it is so eminently replayable as you get these different builds for your character and you try out different things and you just get to wreak all sorts of mythological mayhem across the different levels of hell. From an aesthetic perspective, the character design is so good, really struck a nice balance between that kind of like anime-esque style or like a Merime style and just like something that felt kind of unique, like a new take on what I'd expect from Greek mythology. And just, from that sort of addictiveness standpoint, it is challenging and punishing, but not so punishing in like a Demon Souls sense where you're like, why am I doing this to myself with my spare time? Why has God forsaken us? You're like, no, I was so close. And I think I can do it better. And it's like that kind of thing where it makes you want to keep trying. And like, it's one of those games that actually does reward you for playing through multiple times, which is not something I can say for a lot of other titles, even ones with like a new game plus per se. So yeah, Hades definitely top of the list, I think, for many people. For myself, I might be, this game felt like uniquely created for me. And I know it's like that many people feel like that. It's a game called Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Oh,
yeah.
This game,
I watch people play it. I wouldn't be able to play it. I watch it. Great.
Look, for many people, it may be a bit too Japanese, maybe a bit too esoteric. But for me, oh my God, this was like catnip. Holy shit, this game was extremely my jam. like it basically took this long running, like not a GTA like, but it was this kind of like open world sandboxy action adventure series where you played as someone who was in who's in the Yakuza, the Japanese mafia, and you would like do all these different quests and stuff. And after like a decade plus of these games, they flipped the script and turned it into a JRPG. They completely changed the combat system, turned it into a turn-based RPG. And took the setting out of Tokyo's Kamurocho, which is a sort of riff on the on Kabukicho, the like a red light district in Tokyo, and placed the action in Yokohama. And it is just so wonderful. It made me feel like I was back in Japan, especially in a year where we can't travel. And just like every little detail in that game is so thoughtful. Some of the writing is just absolutely bazoinkers, but in a way that doesn't feel like off. It just, you're like, yeah, of course there's a mission in this game where I have to find people in trouble and give them kimchi so spicy it makes them run at 60 miles an hour to overcome their fears. Of course that's something that I'm doing amidst this backdrop of stopping an inter-gang squabble for the future of Japan. It is just phenomenal. I'm playing it on the Xbox Series X. It like runs amazingly on that console. It's going to be coming out. It's available on a bunch of other platforms right now. I think it's coming to PS5 next March, but cannot recommend that enough, especially if you are jonesing for something that's a bit outside the usual. It was just truly a wonderful experience this year. But something else I wanted to talk about, and Ricky, you kind of brought this up before, that idea of comfort food. And, World of Warcraft, like that's a perfect example. I started playing back in beta way back in, I think 2004. And Jesus, this has been a year where I think while there's been so many fantastic new games, there's also been a ton of older games that have given us kind of solace, or even older titles rediscovering for the first time. So I want to ask the panel, what game did you actually spend the most time playing this year, or what older title did you go back to either play again or rediscover? Caramel, let's start with you on this one.
Well, what's really funny about this is that I'm not a hardcore gamer. I find 2 or 3 games I like and I play them to death, and I play them repeatedly. That's what I do. My own personal Twitch is my boyfriend Chuck, who I will sit down after a hard day on Twitter, as I just mentioned. After,
like how Twitter keeps being referred to as like the salt mines of our generation.
Exactly.
Like hanging up. All right.
Now I'm home. Yeah, and after my run on Mortal Kombat, I'll usually sit back and watch him. And it was really funny because it took him like so long to finish Persona 5. It was hilarious, but I got into it. And I think I got into it also because it's got like that anime feel to it and everything. I also got into, we mentioned Spider-Man already, but I have to say the Miles Morales, the hero of my year is the Bodega Cat Spider-Man.
Yeah, yes.
Like we're all talking about Miles, and I love Miles, but I am here for the Bodega Cat. And when you get to the level that you can play with the cat in the backpack and he comes out of the backpack and starts scratching people's eyes out, this is the level that we need to be at, all of us.
Yeah, that was like one of the best little surprises in that game. And like there's so many amazing little details, like you can put on the like Into the Spider-Verse suit and like adjust the frame rate so it feels like you're in that movie. But just especially after going through the missions of saving the Bodega Cat and then getting to utilize it in combat, it was just such a like little cherry on that ice cream sundae there. So that is, yeah, I definitely agree. And I also feel for Chuck because Persona 5, that is a long ass game. I'm like 100 plus hours into that. I'm so close to the end. That's something I need to go back and finish. I'm like an hour away from finishing.
Something nostalgic that I did check out though was Final Fantasy, because with the new Final Fantasy 7 that came out, I wanted to go back and see the old one, and so we actually there's a way that you can play the old one on PS4, and it was just so funny watching some of the same scenes. And it's like, wow, we played this. The pixels were that big, and we played this, and we were so happy about it.
That game is the reason I bought a PlayStation. My dad rented me a PlayStation from Blockbuster for over the weekend, and I didn't have a memory card, and so I like got so far, and I was like, wait. What do you mean? What's a memory card? I was just like, oh my God. And then that Christmas we got a PlayStation, and that game, like that, honestly, changed my life by showing me this genre of RPGs. And like you mentioned Final Fantasy VII Remake as well. That was also one of my favorite games of the year because it really, while I wish it was longer and expanded and included more of the story, the way they fleshed out what was kind of like the intro section of that of Final Fantasy VII, I loved it. They gave so much more depth to some of these characters, like Jesse, for example, and other members of Avalanche, who really kind of felt just like these cardboard cutouts almost in the original. So, definitely a fantastic way to pass the time in quarantine. But Sam, what about you? What was your sort of video game comfort food this year?
It's Apex Legends. It's always Apex Legends. Every time we talk, I'm playing Apex Legends. I'm still playing Apex. Last year I played 400 hours of Apex. I'm sure this year it's going to be like an obscene number higher than that. It's just so good. It's my favorite battle royale, like online multiplayer, which I never even really enjoyed those games before. There's something about this game that I find so addictive. They had a couple of great seasons this year with 2 new maps, great new characters, including like a science mom who's like wonderful, like kind of nuts and wonderful, and man-eater lady killer character called Loba, who I play all the time now. And the best thing about Apex Legends is every holiday season they introduce like a special mode with a train, and it's like the best. And I spent all year waiting for train mode. And I just feel like this is like the thing that has kept me like sane this year, even though when I talk about it, I don't sound sane, but I just like, it's so great. The mission, every sort of, game you play is like maybe 15, 20 minutes. It's great to sit down and play at the end of a long day. And I think like a lot of people, I actually really struggled to ingest narrative content this year, which as a storyteller was difficult for me. But I just needed something. I found that like it was really hard for my brain to focus on like story or anything like really intense or with a lot of depth. And so something like Apex, which does have a story and has great characters, and like the story is basically the relationships between the characters and how they interact, like that was about the level at which I felt kind of comfortable engaging. And so it was this perfect, like, I don't want to say mindless, but like the perfect balance of not having to think too hard about it, but still have fun with it, which was really important for me this year.
No, I think that's... So,
I just wanted to say that, Sam, I'm going to be low key stalking your Twitch because I was given Apex Legends as a birthday gift. Actually,
it's so great.
Like along with Bangalore.
She's the best. She's the best. Yeah, it's so good.
And so I'm still in the practice mode, trying to figure out how to pick up the guns and not have that thing drop on me.
Yeah, you'll be terrible at it for a while, but it like doesn't. That's the great thing about it. It doesn't matter. Like you just get better quickly. I find.
So I'm just gonna watch your feed until I learn how to not shoot a bazooka too close to a wall or something.
I'm the wrong person to watch in that case.
No, but I think you hit the nail on the head there as well, because I think why Apex Legends stood out for me among the very crowded battle royale field was because they had those clearly defined characters. Is what I loved about Overwatch as well, where you're not just a faceless soldier who's just unlocking skins. You are someone who has a unique set of abilities and a personality, and you can project yourself into that narrative if you choose to do so. Yeah. But you can also reach that kind of flow state, which I find is very important with those video games where you want to kind of like lose yourself in them for a while, where you're in this like 15 to 20 minute cycle of like action and adventure. Then you take a breather, then you go back into it. And I think they like I definitely want to revisit that now that I have buffed my computer processor and GPU a little bit, so I can actually play it without phasing through space and time without the aid of Wraith's abilities, just through my low FPS. So yeah, I think that's definitely a fantastic choice. And I played a lot of Overwatch this year myself. But Ricky, what about you? Was it World of Warcraft or was there another?
I mean, it is World of Warcraft. I actually decided to not just jump back into it. I decided to, because of the expansion being released, just start over from scratch. I was like, I want to re-experience the entire game. So I started a brand new character, and I went all the way to I got to like level 115, and then the expansion came out and reverted it back down to, you got pushed to 50, which you had to go to 60. But the whole experience and getting to re-experience the expansions as they were released in basically that timeline. Like, it was such a fun moment going from like what is, even though it was not Vanilla WoW, but Vanilla WoW into Burning Crusade area for me was just, it was just nostalgic and warm and fuzzy, and it felt great, and I needed it. It's like it was just something that I really needed this year. But outside of that, the Bethesda RPGs, Fallout 4, I replayed. I did a bit of Skyrim. Just something like, as Sam was saying, with like narrative heavy stuff this year, not really working for me. So I've already played through Fallout 4 and Skyrim. I already know what's going to happen, so I can just kind of like passively enjoy it while getting all the buttons pushed of like playing a video game and being like, I remember this. I know what to do here. It was comforting. And that what was good about those games is just like having the experience and kind of just reliving it, not trying to find something new, but just enjoying my time with them again. So that was pretty much it. But Warcraft became new again with Shadowlands, so I'm really enjoying that right now.
Awesome. As for myself, I'd say probably the game I replayed the most would be Civilization 6, because that was the ultimate like, I'm feeling kind of down this week. What if I hit fast forward? Oh, it's next week, because I played one game of Civ 6 and like, holy shit, my life just passed me by. It's a fantastic game. You have not Sean Connery. Oh my God, RIP to a legend. What's his name? Sean Bean. Sean Bean's dulcet tones reading you like pithy quotes when you discover new stuff, and just a fantastic way to pass the day with a nice strategy game.